What's up, everybody? Tobin here with you. Thank you for tuning on in. Look, if you like this channel, did I call it a channel? Channel, whatever. If you like the content here, I hope you guys will tune into the radio show. It was here on this hub. We have moved it now. It is over to youtube.com/The Ticket Miami. You can get the Tobin and Leroy radio show. You guys can see all the hijinks that we got going on over there. Heat, Dolphins, Panthers, all that type of stuff. I guess I'm going to have to get back into the Marlins here this summer now that the basketball is over. But, I'm happy to do it. I want to get into one thing here because it was just Heat media day, exit interview day this week. I was down there on, what was this? This was on Monday? No, Tuesday. I was down there and Spo spoke for a bunch. Udonis Haslem spoke. Tyler Herro spoke. Strus, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. I think that was the list. It was a voluntary thing. So the only people who didn't speak, who probably you were interested in hearing from, because Jimmy wasn't going to talk. Kyle wasn't going to talk. Bam, I never know. Bam, sometimes he talks, sometimes he doesn't. Bam talks basically all the time. So I was like, yeah, maybe he'll talk. But he did speak after the Game 7 loss. So Jimmy, Kyle, and Bam, all who spoke after the game, they didn't talk. And then the only people I was really surprised with who didn't talk were Victor Oladipo and Duncan Robinson. I think those are the only guys who was like, I feel like they would, but they didn't. So anyway, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff that came out of that. I thought Udonis was great. He held court on a lot of things. He talked about Jimmy Butler, talked about the team, talked about where things stand, all the undrafted guys that were good this year, Eric Spoelstra, really dove deep into a lot of stuff as well. But I thought, honestly, easily the most intriguing press conference out of anybody's was Tyler Herro's. You know, Tyler was in this spot where he is coming off a playoffs where it was a little bit uneven for him. I think that he was attacked a lot by these teams defensively, and offensively they threw a lot at him. You know, they threw a lot at him and tried to throw a lot of different coverages at him. They really tried to physically bully him and just had some okay games, had some okay performances, but never really had like that signature game, even like he did as a rookie. And that's, I think, a case of people knowing how dangerous he was this year. So dynamic, 6th man of the year, always clutch for this team. And so I think that it had to be a definite learning experience of like, whoa, being treated like one of the most important players on this team this year. And look, this team still had a lot of success. And for him, I think it was a huge learning experience in a lot of ways. Here's Eric Spoelstra on what Tyler Herro was going through.
Yeah, I think it was really important, to go through that. And every great player, has a journey in the playoffs. Everybody has a memory of great players just being immediately great in all these pressure moments, from the get-go. But you look at the history of the game, there always is, a process to it. And I think, Tyler's work ethic, his commitment, to studying and improving and working on his skill level, as teams are really starting to try to scheme against him, I think that's the ultimate compliment. What it proved to me in my eyes is that teams they see how important he is. They're not going to just let him play. And we saw basically 3 different schemes in 3 different series against him. And I think he just puts that, catalogs it in his brain and then goes to work on it. And I think that'll be really important, moving forward. His skill level is so high, and his work ethic, and how much he puts into it, he's only going to continue to get exponentially better during seasons, and then that'll translate to the playoffs. Skill and having a lot of different ways to attack offensively always plays well in the playoffs eventually. It might not happen exactly on the timeline, that a player or team may want it, but eventually you just can't contain that kind of skill.
UD talked a little bit about this as well.
I think he's understood that it was going to be a different approach going into the playoffs. I think that was a conversation that I had with him, that, teams are going to focus on a lot of different things, and you would be one of them. I remember back in the playoff series when we were playing against OKC, and, the focus was, on, Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And the main focus that we had as a team was stopping James Harden, coming off the bench and the impact that he had off the bench. So I can see a team coming into a series against us really having an impact of focusing and taking Tyler out of a series offensively. And I had that conversation with him, so he was prepared for that. But unfortunately, he had his injury. But coming into a series or any kind of game, I will express to Tyler, and I think Tyler understands that he can help us win basketball games in more ways than just scoring the basketball. He's improved with his passing. He's getting better with his defense and understanding being in the right place at the right time. But these are all things that he's just got to continue to work on.
And Tyler, he kind of gave an overall thing on the scope of the playoffs and what he really thought this was and what it's going to mean for his career.
Well, first of all, the season was, good or great, as far as the experiences, the memories, everything that, happened. Obviously not the ending that we wanted, but, the playoffs for me were kind of a weird ride, ups and downs throughout the whole thing. But I think it was a learning curve for me. I think people forget I just turned 22, and it is still, my third playoffs. And, as I made a jump this year, I continue to get better. And, I think throughout my career there's going to be, well, especially early on throughout my career, there's going to be small, setbacks where I learn. It motivates me, it gets me better, and teaches me what I need to work on, to get better. And next time I'm in that situation, I'll be more prepared and better.
So there's the thing. And yeah, people do forget that he's 22 years old. This is a young kid. He playoffs usually comes with a lot of pain. When he was, 20 years old, he was balling out in the bubble. And we know that he, the next year had some issues. Great piece by Izzy Gutierrez, our guy, who talks about the overwhelming responsibilities of them trying to start him to start the year, and really hasn't gotten back there since to that starting place. And that's where we're going to go here for today, because the thing that probably made the biggest splash out of anything in this press conference was his desire to start. He was asked about this by Ethan Skolnick. I'll play you the clip here, and then we'll dive into what Tyler had to say about it.
Tyler, you accepted the bench role this year, and you made the best of it, obviously. You ended up winning Sixth Man of the Year. Is it a priority for you this offseason to become a starter, a full-time starter for this team next year?
Yeah, for sure. In some way, I would like to start. I think it's my fourth year, so I think I've earned it, and we'll see what happens.
Puts it out there that he thinks he's earned it, that he deserves to start, and a lot of people jumped on him about this. And I think it's maybe the part where he says I've earned it. But I don't disagree with him. Like, I do think that Tyler Herro has earned the right to start for this team. I do think that for Heat culture and young guys in Heat culture, it's always tough being the person who wants to be talking about the individual stuff because they are so team oriented. I'm not saying other teams aren't, but it's like the Heat, Le Batard says this, like, the first words in culture are cult. Like, it is like a zombie organization in that, like, they try and get everybody to go into this. We all believe in each other's success. We all believe in each other's success. We all support each other. It's not about the individual. It's about the team goal, which we all as Heat fans love. We all love that they go by that code. They all recite Udonis Haslem and what he says, stay ready so you don't got to get ready. Like, it's the damn gospel. But when you are a guy like Tyler Herro and you do have a lot of great production early on, and you burst onto the scene and you have, songs written about you, and you are, you get the biggest pop at the arena, right? Like everybody cheers you. You got Drake, Jake Paul, Floyd Mayweather, all the biggest celebrities want to come and talk to you during the games and all this type of stuff. And, you know, you still have this narrative thrown on you, like from Charles Barkley, where it's like, well, he only plays against scrubs because he comes off the bench. And you're like, dude, this isn't your day and age where this guy's being a microwave for 15 minutes and putting up 13 points. Like, he is playing starters minutes. And, you know, Eric Spoelstra goes and he says, well, he is the sixth starter. You know, he puts all these labels on, these spoisms, and Lord love him. It's a great way to label these things. But ultimately, like, the dude wants to come out there. There's a little bit of ego involved, right? Like a lot of young players. It's like, no, you want to be out there. You want the big Mike Biamonte intro. You want the fireballs being thrown up in the air. You want, you know, this is a guy who has said, I want to be in the class, or has agreed that he is in the class of a Trae Young, John Moran, a Luka Doncic. Whether you believe it or not, that's what he believes and has confidence in himself. And so, yeah, you're going into year 4 of it, and you would think to yourself, yeah, I want to be a starter. Like Bam Adebayo got to start by his 3rd year. He was out here doing big responsibilities, and people were he probably exceeded a lot of expectations, not of himself, but of people thinking of what he was going to be able to be as the starting center for this team. We started seeing it in the tail end of his 2nd year about how important he could be for this team and winning. But Tyler's been important for the team's winning since he's come to the team, really. Like, and he said this all year. This is another thing that's interesting with him getting criticized about it, is like, he has said every which way, I want to be starting. I want to be starting. Even with me being 6th man of the year, I've accepted the role. I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. I want to be starting. This is not something new that he has said. The interesting thing out of this is like, well, are the Heat going to do it? You know, are the Heat going to put him in a position where he does start? Basically, is he going to take that starting Max Strus spot, that starting shooter spot, and is that going to be his spot? Because it was Duncan Robinson's spot for the longest, and Duncan lost the job. And you know Spo doesn't like to change rotations. He likes to keep things as tight as possible, so they end up going with Max Strus, who had, you know, an up and down playoffs, hit some really key shots. I think, you know, tried to show that he held his own defensively. But ultimately is the guy who was in that starting lineup, and I think showed himself to be a capable defender. People always say, well, you know, you're going to get attacked if you're on defense, all this type of stuff. Like, yeah, dude, when you're on a team with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, they're going to be looking for some weaknesses. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's always going to be, even if Tyler and Max Strus were not looked upon as poor defenders, if they were looked upon as average defenders, they're going to get picked on more than what else the Heat have to throw out there, which are elite defenders. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The question here with the Heat and Tyler is going to be a fascinating one. That going into this offseason, where do they stand with him? This guy is, I think, really, really popular amongst the fan base. People love Tyler Herro. They love Boy Wonder, everything that he brings to the table. Definitely felt like the relationship between him and Jimmy was better this year as opposed to year 2, where they were super close in year 1, and you know Jimmy was always singing Tyler's praises to the high heavens, and I felt like that was a lot of that chemistry stuff was all back this year with things being a little bit more normal. But I do think that it's going to be interesting because the Heat look at this offseason. Do they run a lot of this stuff back? And do they think that, hey, it's natural that Tyler Herro at 23 years old, as he'll be in January, will the natural growth be there? Will he get a lot stronger just like he did this offseason? And is that good enough? Is it good enough to expect a leap from Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo and think that that's going to be better for Jimmy Butler? Kind of sticking with their core, a lot like what Boston did, but the Heat in this difference have Jimmy Butler, who has been brought in and is clearly one of the best players in the league. Is that good enough to run with him and think we're going to do it? Or are they going to look at this and say, oh my gosh, Kyrie Irving became available. Do they go and find a way to get him? Does that mean that they have to give up Tyler Herro for him? Or can it be something like just giving up Lowry for him? Is Bradley Beal start flirting again? spoiler alert, he will flirt again and then sign a big contract with the Wizards and stay with the Wizards. That's what's going to happen. Damian Lillard, does that become a thing again? Does the Donovan Mitchell thing actually become a thing? These are all things that will be interesting. Like Donovan Mitchell, Heat rumors are already out there, or reports or rumblings. And Tyler Hero is going to be in every one of those talks. And I think the thing that's interesting about it is, Tyler talked to, I remember asking him about this at Tony Fiorentino's camp, where he's like, yeah, trade rumors don't bother me anymore. And he talked a little bit about this with Izzy too, about having to put all that stuff out of your head because it really was a bog down on him. But I do think that in a way with Tyler, it's going to be interesting because he's got this eligibility for a contract extension. The way it differs from Bam is they went to the finals with Bam. Bam was an all-star that year. Bam dominated an Eastern Conference Finals. He looked like a playoff quality player. And so really wasn't a question. With the Heat this year, a guy like Tyler Herro, the way guys are getting paid money, I expect Tyler Herro to get a ton of money wherever he goes. If it's here, usually that extension, I feel like it's going to be for a lot of money. And are the Heat convinced that he is a playoff player, that he will get better at this, or will he be a guy they always think is hunted? And then on the other flip side of that is, does Tyler Herro want to be, the good soldier being on the Miami Heat? And, they say, well, what if the possibility is that you are off the bench next year? You still do come into that role this year. Well, he's very clearly put out there, I don't want to be there. So would it be better for him to go somewhere else? These are going to be interesting things that are asked. I don't know when those conversations happen in the summertime. I think everybody just kind of want to get a getaway. But I was not surprised to hear this from Tyler here. And I don't really think it's, I don't say I don't think it's a big deal, because I think it is a big deal amongst all of the brain trust that, like, hey, he did this 6-man thing to the best of his ability. Are we going to go in the way where we're going to start him this year? And for him is like, is this going to be the place for me? Because I think in all things of a vacuum, like, the Heat obviously know that the guy is beloved by the fans. They know that he does work his ass off. He did get a lot better from year 2 to year 3. There's no question about that. He is only 22 years old. I would say really the only thing that's holding Tyler Herro back in this, and it being a question, is, do they think that the growth of Tyler Herro will also coincide with the prime of Jimmy Butler? In that, do they think that in Jimmy's championship window, Tyler Herro will be a good enough playoff player to win a championship? I think that's going to be the interesting question this year. If he can take the leap from this year, from 2 to 3 like he did this year, from 3 to 4, man, I think he probably could. Defense, they're still going to get physical with him, but you get stronger with age, you get more wise with age, all that type of stuff. And the other thing that was really intriguing about this offseason with Tyler is, man, his three-point shot stunk. I don't know what happened. I remember doing the post game with Tommy and, like, looking at the numbers and, like, because it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like, oh man, he's really building a brick house from downtown. But when I saw it, it was like game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals, right before he got hurt. And you're just like, man, this guy, because that is one of the things that he's so ignitable out there. And we know what a pure, gifted shooter this guy can be. And it felt like really like the only thing by the end of this was working for him was the baby float. So all very intriguing stuff that's coming up this offseason for Tyler Herro, but it's really not a big deal that he has confidence in himself and that he wants to start. It shouldn't be a surprise, and Heat fans really shouldn't rip him over it. It's a stupid thing to rip a player over that he wants to start, that he wants. Max Strus is saying the same thing. Max Strus is like, considering himself, says he basically was something to the effect of like putting the league on notice because they had the defensive player of the year on me. Like, these guys are all working hard for the same stuff. They're all working hard to get in big spots. Victor Oladipo the same way. Victor Oladipo is trying to get himself back to being an all-star and an all-NBA player. I think that's going to be an interesting thing for the Heat in general, is like that you had all of these guys pulling the same direction of, we're all trying to win the championship. Do they all come back with that mentality of, we'll do whatever it takes to win the championship, or we'll take what it is to win the championship, but I want also to start, or I want this many shots, or I want this. A lot of the times it happens after you win the championship. It's like the Riley saying, the disease of me. I think that it'll be interesting if this is hitting you a little bit early, because, your core of Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler has been to the finals now, has been to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 out of the last 3 years, but they haven't gotten there yet. So will they still come back with that mentality? And this is mostly a Tyler question because Bam, I don't think is really going to sacrifice too much. He's going to play how he plays. Jimmy obviously is going to be that dude. He's made it said, I don't want to come off the bench. So there already is going to be something that he wants different going into next year, especially if they don't extend him, right? Like if they don't extend him and he wants to be, if the can gets kicked down on that extension for another year, then he's definitely going to want to start because he's going to want to make, I would imagine, more money. Now, maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe the Heat go and they give him more than anybody would, and maybe that makes him a little bit more, I don't know what the word is there, amicable to like, is that the right word? Makes him a little bit more agreeable to doing whatever role if the contract extension is taken care of in the way that he wants to. But if it's not, then yeah, I think the starting thing is definitely going to be the thing going into next year. So it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But to rip him over it, for fans to be pissed about it, I thought that was weird. Don't rip Boy Wonder over that.